Hello there. As we were editing this, we realized that I never actually introduced myself or even said my name. We did the first episode several times. Like, we just kept re-recording it because we didn't like how it turned out. And the one that we ended up keeping was from back in September of 2024. And here we are in June of 2025, like finally being like, okay, let's just put it out there. Like, we can't just keep re-recording the same thing over and over again. But I never introduced myself in that take of it. So, hi, I'm Matt. I'm a sitar player, part-time. By day, I'm a product manager. And yeah, Gaj and I are friends. Like, we've met a long time ago, like 20 something years ago, when we were both taking sitar lessons. And we're just trying to do this podcast. And naturally, we love talking about Indian classical music and related tangential items. So that's what we're doing. And the other thing that we noticed when we were doing the editing of this episode is that we never explained the name Rogstars. So to be clear, we are not calling ourselves Rogstars. We might in our heads, but definitely not out loud. We say that. Our hope is that when we have guests come on the podcast, like, those guests are Rogstars, even if they don't admit it. In our humble estimations, they are the true embodiment of a rock star, which is a fantastic play on the word rock star, and a name given to us by our friend Ammon. So, friend of the podcast, Ammon, thank you so much. There's a reason that you're a social media wizard and director at big fancy companies. So thank you for that. And I hope you don't cringe as much as we internally were cringing while we did the episode, and even more so while we were editing it.
And we are still cringing.
We're still cringing, but hopefully you like it, and hopefully the cringe goes away as we keep going and we get better and better at this, because neither of us have anything to do with public speaking in our day jobs. So this is all new territory for us. But without further ado, here's part 1, episode 1, Rogstars, the origin stories.
Intro composition, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're musicians, so like, why not, right?
Oh God. Does that mean I have to perform?
Whatever, guys. You don't have to do anything. It's all good.
Perfect. And we're live?
Yes.
Hey! Yeah. Okay, hold on. So, clap to sync everything. 3, 2, 1. Because we forgot to do that last time?
Yes. Although Logic did a really good job at figuring it out.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay,
you
perfect.
just throw it in like the multicam edit, and it was just like, there you go.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I love it. Bro, welcome back.
Thank you.
Even though this is technically our first episode, so back at it again.
Back at it again.
What are we doing here?
We're recording a podcast, guys.
Oh, a podcast on what exactly?
This was your idea.
So this was my idea.
This was your idea.
So I should have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, hold on. Did we say that I'm going to use the full Mother name?
That's up to you.
Oh, yeah. So, hey guys, I'm Gajanand. Let's see. I am technically a sitar player, but I just consider myself a little bit more of a music nerd than anything else. Armchair music nerd. So Let's make that distinction.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm
very appropriate. These chairs do not have arms.
I feel like that hurts my credentials a little bit.
Well, you're just
an armless chair musician.
An armless chair musician, yeah.
That sounds like a great anime.
It's a good album. Memoir.
Memoirs?
Yeah.
Wow.
Memoir title.
Yeah. Nice.
Dig it.
Nice. So, it's 2024.
Yes.
And we are into Indian classical music.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a head full of gray hair.
Yet.
Mm-hmm. Yet. How do we get here?
It was a long, winding road.
Oh, okay. Do we have time? I have time.
I think that is the point of this episode.
Ooh, okay. Nice.
That is the point of this, to talk about how we got into this.
Yeah. I think I've been desensitized to this over the years, but like, do you still feel like every now and then, do you still have this feeling of like, hey, it's 2024, how come we still are like, we find so much meaning from something that's essentially like an ancient music system?
I don't know. I
You know?
mean, I don't think I thought about it that way.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Or I didn't question that.
Ah,
Let me put it that way.
ah,
I mean, this music just does plenty for me.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's the therapy that I don't have to pay extra for.
that's true.
And I kind of think like it had been that for me from the beginning. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I first like heard any of this stuff, I was a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
The perfect time
Uh-huh.
to need
Yeah.
something
Therapy.
like that. Yeah, exactly. And even though like I mean, my introduction to it was on the instrumental side. There were no words,
Yeah.
which was great because
Yeah.
I don't speak any of the languages.
Same.
But it did what I needed it to do, and
Yeah.
it continues to do so. So that's why I never questioned like, oh, it's 2024. How am I still doing this? It's like I can't imagine not.
So you know how much I love talking about music, and I think for me, one of the ways that like I get to know people first is just like, oh hey, like what do you listen to? So, and especially since like it's that time of year where like everyone's posting their like Spotify wrap ups and their like YouTube recaps and all this fun stuff, and it's just like, you know, oh my God, it's Taylor Swift, it's The Weeknd, it's all of these pop artists, and then it's just like me, where it's just like, oh, Vilayat Khan, Buddy Ghulam Ali Khan. It's just like all of these people who like I find it very like they're not of pop culture, and they're not even. It's just one of those things where it's just like I really am able to have this conversation with people of our generation, because it's usually like, you know, the dadimas and dadis that have that knowledge of like who these people are. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy though. But
we are here.
we are here. What was it like? Oh my God, what was it like listening to Indian classical music for the first time?
It was strange. It was
Strange.
weird. I mean, I was in high school, so it was ninth grade,
Shout out Mount St. Joe's.
Mount St. Joe High School in Baltimore, Maryland.
Hey.
The class was Ancient World Civilizations. The chapter was on ancient India. The textbook has like a little sidebar thing on Pandit Ravi Shankar.
Oh.
My history teacher, Mr. Campbell, best history teacher ever.
Shout out Mr. Campbell.
He just played a Ravi Shankar CD in the background during class for that class.
He just had one in the album case.
Yeah,
Oh.
he did. He's always doing stuff like that. He'll
Yeah.
like pull up to gas stations blasting like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, and then the gas station owner will come out and be like,
Wow.
"You're white." This is a story he told us in class,
Oh.
and then I was like, "Yeah, that tracks."
Yeah. Of course.
But yeah, he's the man. But
Yeah.
he played a Ravi Shankar CD, and I didn't listen to anything he was talking about during class. I was just listening to that
Yeah.
while I was playing in the background. And then I was like, I need to borrow that. And he was like, yeah, sure, go for it. Immediately ripped it, just listened to it on repeat forever. It was his album Three Ragas. So the first one I ever heard was Rag Jog. And there was just a lot going on. It was a lot. It
Yeah.
was like 30 minutes. And I was just like sitting there being like, is this the same track? Like, what is happening here? Like, before then, it's like I never heard anything like it. The
Yeah.
longest like song I'd ever heard was like Iron Maiden's like Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, like 14 minutes long, like kind of thing. And I was like, man, that was epic.
Yeah.
This one's like
Twice
he's
that,
just getting
essentially.
started.
Yeah.
I was like, good lord. But yeah, that was the first one, and then the year is 2004. So just to put all this into perspective, so
Was YouTube a thing yet? I don't think so.
Oh
Maybe
man,
it's
I
just
think it was
starting
like
to be.
Google Video since.
Yeah. So I'm just like Google searching around for all this stuff and like I don't know any of the jargon.
Yeah.
I'm like completely fish out of water on this. I'm just like, cool. Raga jog.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
Don't know what a raga is. Don't know what jog means.
Yep.
I mean jogging. That's all I know.
Jogging. Yeah.
So that's how this whole thing got started, and I would just Google around for different things, and came across like at the time there was like a handful of like Indian stores in the Tacoma Park area that had like that sold music and stuff like that and
Yeah.
jewelry and clothes and things. So like I went with my family and like just checked out like what CDs they had, and then they had like a couple Ravi Shankar CDs. So I like bought them,
Yeah.
and like next one I was like Portrait of Genius, and then there's like a short Gathan Kirwani on there that's like 2.5 minutes long, and once I heard that I was like, I'm sold on this instrument. This is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was like the genesis of it. Like and there's just so much going on. It's just very different than anything I had heard before. It's very like just the difference in those two ragas alone. Like there are two other ones on three ragas, right? Like they all sounded so different from each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but there's like only like two people on here.
Yeah.
So much is happening. Like it's wild. And so I just wanted to get into it.
So I think what I love most about like just talking about music with you and just like our backgrounds in general is that like whenever we do come across people in Indian classical music, they usually have like a very broad family history of being in Indian classical music, and we don't have that.
Not at all.
We kind of just like fell into this. And I think one of the cool perspectives about that is, you know, like where's your background from?
Yeah, I mean, in the musical space, like family wise, it's non-existent as far as I know. Like, where my family is from Kerala, so South India.
Yeah.
My parents like didn't know that much about sitar either. Like they were like, "Are you talking about Veena?"
Yeah.
Yeah, Veena's cool. And I was like, "Sure." Like,
Yeah.
I only just found out what this was. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, but they're spelled very differently. I don't think they're the same thing.
Technically speaking, anything with a string we could call a vina. So
These are all subtleties I did not yet know. Also, I was 14 and thought
Yes.
I knew what I was like. I thought I knew more than what they were talking about. So I was like, what are you talking about? You don't know what's going on here. So, yeah, there's that. Like, no one in my family really pursued music in that way.
Yeah.
We're all Catholic. Like, sure, plenty of people sang at church and stuff like that. But I don't, as far as I know, no one like really did anything with it. And especially not in like the Indian classical space. Not Carnatic music either, as far as I know.
yeah.
So, like, that's kind of where I was coming from. What about you?
So I grew up in a pretty religious family. So we didn't really have much like classical influences growing up. It was basically just like I grew up with a lot of bhajans and like obviously not Catholic, but like we grew like my family being religious, we grew up around a lot of like bhajans and a lot of music that would be played in mandir. And like I obviously that was not my style. So I think when I was around like 5 or 6, my parents tried to teach me like harmonium, and I immediately was like, nah, this is not it. So I grew up around it, but I didn't like it at all. I think one of my first soirees into like classical stuff was like when I was really little, like I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old. I came across a CD of Kalyani Roy, and like I was just baffled because like I knew of Ravi Shankar and I knew a couple of like classical Indian musicians, but I never heard of a female Indian musician. So of course, like one of the first tracks is in Yaman, and I immediately was like, "Oh, this is awesome." But then I kind of just like put that on the back burner a bit, and like again, I just kind of like hardcore rebelled against like anything like traditional until I until one of my cousins started getting me into like the Asian Massive movement, which was a whole bunch of artists in the UK taking like modern day like electronic music, but also still bringing in elements of like Indian classical music. So it was interesting to like that slowly but surely led me into like getting into like classical music because I don't know, I feel like having just listening to like classical music all at once was a little too much for me. So having that kind of just like, oh hey, here's just a little classical music for you, that kind of got me to like, oh hey, this is awesome. Let me dive deeper and deeper and deeper into this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was awesome. But I think, and yeah, thank God for Google because again, like people of our generation and even the generation before us didn't really have that classical music knowledge of like, what's a rag? What is this instrument? What are they playing? Like, why are we having these titles named after like a light jog? Like, what are these things? So, you know, that left a lot of questions that did not get answered. But thankfully, there's good old Google.
Yeah, stitching things together.
Yeah.
It's funny, like these things have to find you at like the right time, point in your life. So
Yeah.
it's awesome that even though like you have the early exposure like through religion, that you still found these other like aspects of it
Yeah.
that kept your interest until you hit the point where you could then actually appreciate it,
Yeah.
and it was still there
Yeah.
for you, like to come back around.
So what's wild is that like when I was in school, I did a lot of choir, and the choir music that we did, it was a lot of jazz influence and a lot of like Broadway and Disney stuff and all of that. So what was really awesome is whatever elements I learned from that, when I started getting into classical music more, I connected the dots based on what I knew through choir, not what I grew up with bhajan wise. So it was wild, you know, thinking about like licks, like a jazz lick or a jazz mode, and thinking about like, oh yeah, that's like almost like a tan, or like that's what this rag is. It's like almost in this mode. So I was super thankful for like that upbringing that I had in like Western music where I could connect those dots. So yeah, like you said, it was interesting to see how I was surrounded by all of these elements, and everything just clicked at the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny for me because, like, growing up, I had several attempts at learning music. Like, I think first it was, like, piano.
Yeah.
And that did not last long. I
Yeah.
think maybe, like, I don't know, 10 lessons or something like that before
Yeah.
I gave up. And then I did a little bit of guitar in high school. Like, you can take guitar, like, beginning guitar and stuff like that. And it's a class, so, like, perfect. So I did that. And of course, this is like before I like completely undiagnosed ADD. Like I can't keep up with any of these things.
Yeah.
And like the theory for it, like it theoretically makes sense to me, but then like applying it, I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then it was like great that one of the first things was like, oh yeah, this is an oral tradition. Like it's all different. Like you don't have to do any of that stuff. And I was like, nice.
Man, I think one of the other things about it being an oral tradition was that like, so when I was in elementary school, we had this like revolving band curriculum where we would like pick up a new instrument, we would play it for like 2-3 months, have like a quick recital, and then switch instruments again. So I did choir from essentially kindergarten till I was like in ninth or 10th grade. I don't know how to sight read. And for me, like putting music, like obviously when you're in that sphere, they're like, oh, here's the notes, learn how to read notes and then play that. So I was always terrified because all I would do is just memorize the music. I wouldn't be able to actually read what was in front of me. So I would always get yelled at about how like it would be like the beginning stages of rehearsal and I would be playing something out of tune, or I would try just to mimic my way to it. And then when I felt confident enough to like that I memorized the music, I would just hardcore like ADD, like hyper focus on, okay, I need to practice this little thing, and then I need to add this thing onto it, and then I need to add this thing onto it. And I was just like, oh, indie classical music, it's oral, great. There's a lot of improv, great.
Yeah. That is a great thing.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So how did you like act once you like started hearing, and how did you go from you heard it, you like it, okay, cool, how did you start learning it?
Google, man. It was great. So I was just, so again, this was like early 2000s. So like the internet was just up and coming. And a lot of things were like, it wasn't like websites. It was a lot of like Angel Fire stuff.
Those
and
are websites.
Yeah.
Don't diss Angel Fire.
Okay, yeah. But not what you would think of a website is today. So it was a lot of blogs and it was a lot of all of these things. And I just remember just one day like typing in Indian classical music teacher. And I think we both ended up on the same website. It was the Chandrakons, right?
Chandrakanta forums.
Yeah. So I was just scrolling through, and like I knew that there was still like a big Indian classical music scene in like New York and sometimes part of New Jersey, and like I was like one of the only brown kids growing up. So my hopes for Maryland was like nothing whatsoever. And then I was scrolling, and then we came on to Maryland, and then it was like, oh, there's a couple teachers? Okay, great. And then this was before Google Maps, so quick MapQuest, and it was like, oh, one of the teachers literally lives like 2 exits away from me. And I was just like, oh, I gotta check this out. So
Yeah, the world is weird like that.
it was, again, yeah.
Same thing for me, but I was like, wait, this is like 2 streets away from the path I walk my dog.
Yeah.
And so it says Academy of Indian Music and Fine Arts, and this is like a residential neighborhood. Academy is back here. Like,
Exactly.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it was like wild.
Yeah, it was awesome. One of the cool things is that like, well, not really cool. Like, I don't want to say sheltered, but like if it wasn't Indian adjacent, I couldn't do it growing up. So it was really interesting where like it wasn't that hard to convince my parents to be like, oh, hey, I want to learn Indian classical music. So because it was Indian adjacent, it was just like, oh yeah, sure. We'll go check it out.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that much resistance when it came to like learning that. And I think, so it's weird because like one of my cousins, he grew up playing tabla. And I think one of my, like part of my resentment of Indian classical music and just largely ignoring it is because it was kind of like the typical brown thing to like pit us against each other kind of thing, where it was just like, oh, well, your elder cousin plays this, you should too. And I, like, even though I was like a child, I quickly recognized that, and I was just like, no. So I think one of the other things that really led me to gravitate to sitar was that it wasn't tabla.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pettiness goes a long way, I think.
It works.
It works. I think, so I'm slightly younger than you, not by much, but my I started, I think we started learning music around the same time.
I think so.
Yeah, but I was in like 7th and 8th. I was like in 7th grade when I started learning sitar. And did I ever tell you about like one of my 8th grade choir concerts? Okay. So I didn't know any better, and I still look back on this with like bitter regret. But it's so it was our 8th grade choir performance, and we were performing John Lennon's Imagine. And for some stupid reason, it was known that I was a sitar player. So my choir instructor was like, "Hey, would you want to play sitar for this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?"
I love everything about this.
It was horrifying. So let me go off on a quick tangent real quick.
Okay.
So I also had a world music class in middle school, and it was awesome because we were learning like piano stuff. So I knew a little bit of harmonium at the time, so I could never get my left hand. I always just used my right hand. And then out of nowhere, my music teacher was just like, "Hey, this is not harmonium. You should be using both hands." And I was just like, "What?" I was like, whoa, hold on. How do you know about this? And she was just like, "I'm a world music teacher. Of course I know what harmonium is." And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." And then I was like, "Yeah, like I'm learning sitar." And then we had a cool conversation with that. And the world music, the world music classroom was right across from the choir classroom. So, and like those two teachers were really tight with each other. So I think that's how my choir teacher ended up knowing about it. And this was back in the day, so there was no such thing as like the sleek fiberglass sitar cases. Like it was essentially dragging a coffin. It was it was awful. So you just see this like brown kid hauling this like coffin, and oh my god, it's post 9/11. So literally when I took out the sitar, the entire class was just like, "Oh my god, is that a rocket launcher? Blah, 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 blah." And I was like, good old casual racism.
I've gotten a lot of that too.
Yeah. It was, it was, what a rough childhood we had, kind of. But yeah, so I just remember playing that for my 8th grade concert. And I remember miking it up. I remember it like I had to like I didn't know anything about like any technical stuff and stuff back then. So I was literally just playing like what my teacher told me to play. But yeah, let's just say that like my coolness factor in 8th grade just plummeted after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there a recording of this?
I do not know, and I hope there is not.
Gonna have to do some investigative research and find this because we need it.
Yeah. I need it for therapy sessions. But yeah, that was like one of my first performances on sitar. As I think, actually the wild part is that I think I was only learning for like maybe 3 to 6 months at the time. So it was just baptism by fire, literally.
Yeah. It's always fun to do that for sure. Like, I mean, I was lucky our teacher had like recitals basically like every quarter. And from when I started, it was like right after one of those had happened.
Yeah.
So like 3 months later, it was like, cool, you're up on stage.
Yeah.
And I mean, he actually run like a music competition. I think that was the first time I played, like, because that was always Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
And I think I started around September. Like that's vaguely what my notebook says.
Yeah.
Like 2004 September. Like here we go. And I think that may have been like the first time I was like on stage, and I was like, good God. Like, yeah, I learned what stage fright was. Had to learn how to deal with that.
Yeah.
And all of these things all at the same time. But it was good. The only time I attempted something like what you did was a few years later.
Yeah.
We have like a senior project that we could do, and I did like a concert at the school, which was awesome.
I don't think I was there for that one. I think I was there for the concert that you played in at church. There was a church performance, right?
Yeah.
I
A
remember that
fundraiser.
one. Oh, a fundraiser.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that one.
But I feel like that was much later.
I think that was much later.
Yeah.
Because I think you were in college by then.
I mean, if it's what I'm thinking about, I may have already. I was either in college or just finished
yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that was a good time.
Yeah.
That was like a fundraiser, and they raised an epic amount of money.
Oh.
And I was the excuse for it, and I was like, what?
What?
But yeah, it was great. And some of the people there, like I think one of the guys who was there, like he was like a member of that church, and I want to say like he told me afterwards that he was like at Woodstock or something, and then, like I was just like, okay, and he was just like, man, you like took me back, and I was like, these compliments are like way too insane.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this guy's just gassing me up, but then he like donated like 10 grand, and I was like,
Oh. Okay.
dang.
Yeah. Nice. Woodstock it is.
I mean, hey, yeah. And the funny thing is, like, that church is in Woodstock, Maryland.
Yes.
So I was like,
Yeah.
the Woodstock thing just went all the way around. It was great. But yeah, no, that was really cool. And yeah, I think we raised enough money. Like, I did that twice, like in consecutive years. I feel like I earned like a good chunk of karma points, like in the universe from like those two things. So it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. I don't think I'm still over my stage fright. So for me, like, yeah, even though we had competitions and we had the 3-month programs, I would dread performing on stage. But like, remember, like, after, like, whenever we were done after class, like whenever we were finished class, right? You know how I would always go back and then just like practice on my own, like whenever we had like the few group practices, like I loved that setting. And I just remember that, like, that's when I was just like, oh, I don't mind like there's a couple of people over here. But yeah, when it comes to like performing, I just don't think I ever had it in me where I was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna perform for some people. So yeah, besides the little lecture thingy that I did for your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. Glad you had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe, like, I literally timed it for like 10 minutes. So the fact that I was on stage for, what was it, like 30?
Yes.
Yeah.
For all the listeners that don't know what we're talking about, we just had like a performance here at my house. For everyone on video, this is my house.
Yeah.
This is where it happened. But yeah, it was a good time, and I was really happy to do it. It was like the musical housewarming for the house. Like, it didn't have a housewarming like officially, and then filled it with music. It was a good time.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So even though you went way over what you told me was going to be a 5-minute performance, it was fantastic.
Hey.
And it was the genesis for like, oh, we should actually do this.
Yeah, we should actually do this.
With this podcast thing that we've been talking about for like 5 years.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. It's so funny to see like the culmination of this, because like, this is what we would do after class on Sundays, where we would just go to Dunkin' Donuts and just talk about stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's nice to see that this is kind of like a culmination of all of that. So yeah, it was great, man. Dude, I think one of like the coolest memories that I have of growing up was just talking to music with you and talking to music with Vish, who's our camera guy. Shout out to him. But yeah, dude, yeah, I had like most of my childhood memories that I love was just talking about music with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, good times, and we'll keep doing it.
And yeah, hopefully
and we'll bring along a audience of at least one person.
Yeah,
maybe more to this, and yeah, like we'll see what comes of it. I'm pretty excited to do this. I mean, like I was saying a little bit at the beginning, like what this did for me, and like that was my exposure to it. Like, yeah, if anyone, like, we're kind of just making it a little bit easier to get into.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of the people that came to the performance we had here, some were like more familiar with this like Indian classical stuff, some weren't. and they just really appreciated like the breakdown you were given like for the little bit that you played.
Hey.
And made it like really relatable. And I feel like a bunch of like my friends that aren't in the musical sphere, like anytime I broke it down for them and then they like got to hear me play and stuff, they like came away with like really positive impressions of it and like wanted to learn a little bit more and were willing to. And then like every now and then I would like see them at like some like performance-y type thing, whether it was like a cultural thing or just like a concert that they opted into going to.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, what are you doing here? And then I was like, you know, it's all good stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think one of the things, like I really love the fact that like, you know, the stuff that we play is just, you know, like if we're playing like Amir Khusru stuff, right? That's from like the 13th century. Mm-hmm. So the fact that like we still find meaning in this day and age to something that was written so long ago, like I love that aspect about it.
Yeah.
And I think like Indian classical music has so much to offer people. It's just very tough to get into without someone being like, oh, hey, this is what this is. This is what that is. And I think that's like one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this is because like I was lucky enough to have people around me who were able to kind of like hold my hands and be like, oh, hey, this is what this is, and this is what this aspect of the concert is, and this is what's going on with this. And I really wanted to like open that up to more of a general audience, where it's just like, I think Indian classical music it could offer something to everybody. It's just sometimes you need to like dip your toes in the water first rather than just dunking yourself in.
Yeah, no, completely. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there are a lot of people trying to make it more approachable.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
And but it's still hard, like to go one step beyond that.
Yeah.
Like it's just very difficult.
Yeah.
Despite like all the people that are like trying to document this stuff and explain things and like all the technology that we have now and YouTube and all these people like explaining stuff, like it's great, but it's just difficult.
Yeah.
Again, if you don't have that like kind of environment, if you're just like on your own trying to figure this out,
yeah,
it's a little tough. You got to find like some community that you can latch onto.
Yeah.
Whether it's like some subreddit
yeah,
where you see all the beginners coming
yep,
and like asking the questions and not reading the stickies.
Yeah.
But it's all good, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, that's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah. And if you don't already have friends that are into this also or like exploring it with you also, it's tough. If you don't go and find a music teacher, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then at least like someone can explain things to you, but then also you have like all these other students that like if you have like some rough like camaraderie with like age wise, like you're close and things like that, like that all works out.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just like another forum for people to be like, oh, okay, it's like
yeah,
it's more chill than I thought. I thought it's like stodgy,
yeah,
like really like stick your pinky up while you drink the chai, kind of a thing, and it's definitely not.
Yeah.
You can be slumming it in your PJs and anime shirts and and still be doing Indian classical music. It's no problem. I mean, I'm all for the the deep cultural aspects of it, and like the seriousness of it, like for sure. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to let that be the reason that you didn't get into it in the first place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of facets to it.
I don't like that aspect of gatekeeping, especially since our backgrounds. Like I didn't grow up with any of the languages, and neither did you. So language was a very big component to overcome, especially when it came to Indian classical music, and especially when it came to like other aspects of music in general. Mm-hmm. Because like ghazals are not just ghazals aren't just Shuddh Hindi or Shuddh Urdu. There's a lot of Farsi attached to it. There's a lot of Arabic attached to it, and it was daunting because like I had to learn things that were very hard to learn. Because it's not like, oh, hey, I could go to like anyone who understands Urdu and be like, oh, hey, can you can you like
Explain this to me?
can you
Yeah.
translate this to me? They're like, oh well, I don't speak like 1300s high Urdu, and I'm just like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was always funny to me,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in college, because it was like that's the first time where I'm like surrounded by so many people roughly my age that can speak these languages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'd be like, "Here you go.
Yeah.
Explain this to me." And they're like, "I don't know what language that is."
Yes.
I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yes.
And they're like, "This is like Shakespeare."
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how easy is it for you to translate Shakespeare? And I was like, well, not that bad. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
sure. Like, I got it.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, it's very fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lots of topics for us to go to in depth in future episodes.
Future
here.
episodes,
Like,
yeah.
we have a lot to cover.
Yeah. I think like what would you say to people about like what our main like what is our main thing of doing this podcast for?
Well, I think we already covered the. We just like talking about it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
We're both very busy people. Like I have a wife and a kid.
You have, yes.
And another one on the way.
Yes.
And just having some time to do this, like, is time that we get to hang out together.
Of course.
So, like, that's always good.
Yeah.
And like, I need to make sure there's like an environment for these kiddos when
Yeah.
they grow up, like to
Yeah.
have it, but to not necessarily have a negative association with it, like you may have had
Yeah.
when you first like heard it with family.
Yeah.
So I gotta keep it cool. Well, not that my kids will ever think I'm cool, but that seems to just be a thing. But I can try.
Yeah, dude, you're too cool. Yeah, you're too cool for your kids not to think that you're cool.
I don't know. I think it's just like,
Bro, you're wearing an
inherent
anime shirt. You're
default.
wearing an anime shirt, and we're talking about Indian classical music. Like, come on.
You got me the shirt.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it.
It's
Thank
okay.
you.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I don't know. It's just your programming when you grow. It's like, hey, how cool could my dad be? You figure it out later.
Yeah, of course.
But like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can't just like go out of the gates thinking that.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I really wanted to do with this podcast was just, again, like, we were fortunate to be surrounded by people to show us, like, give us more info into Indian classical music. And most of those people come from have that lineage of knowledge that were brought down to them, and that I was fortunate enough to interact with those kind of people. And if I didn't have that, a large part of my life revolves around Indian classical music. And I think that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't that lucky to come into contact with these people. So I think one of the main things that I want to do with this podcast is just say, hey, you don't need to all of a sudden listen to an hour and a half concert series to say that, oh, hey, I'm into Indian classical music. One of it's just like, hey, we don't have any of that lineage knowledge. We don't even come from the language. Like, I'm not, like, my family's not even from that side of the world because we're Caribbean. So, we have so many hurdles that not prevented us, but like we had to jump through so many hurdles to get to what little that we have today in terms of like Indian classical music knowledge. And I don't want that gate kept. Like, I want to be able to talk about it and hopefully have other people come along for the ride with us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the idea here is that this is a guest interview podcast kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there are many people that I would love to talk to and
my-
learn from.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
that would be the other motivation here.
Yeah. Hopefully Karsh Carly come on our show.
Yeah. Definitely. Maybe when we go into the in-depth of like the first things that we were listening to.
Yes.
We can just keep shouting them out.
Yeah.
Hit them up on Twitter.
Oh my God. Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Be like the friends of the friends that know these guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
It'll be good times.
I think that concludes episode 1.
Sure.
You want to leave it out over here?
I think so.
Yeah. Vish, what do you think?
That's the pod.
Hey.
Something you would listen to?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.